Ground is really high because what they did is they dug out the pond next to it and they put the sand I had to get a bid, and I had to get one bid, so whatever the
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending our 5 o'clock meeting of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask that you join us in a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we do at the start of all of our meetings, we ask that you join us in a moment of silence as we think and pray for those brave men and women of our local law enforcement, our first responders, our fire services folks, our EMS folks, and all those that serve us here in Flagler County and put us first. And also, we can never forget and always need to remember the brave men and women of our United States military that serve us here and abroad. So let's take a moment and think about them, please. Okay, thank you. First up, we have some additions and deletions and changes to the agenda. And first is we need to add a proclamation proclaiming National Correction Officers Employees Week, which was requested by our sheriff, Sheriff Staley. So we need a motion to add that to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we add Proclamation National Correctional Officers and Employees Week to the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed, that motion carries. And then also, there's an additional item for for discussion and approval of a letter of support to SMA for a grant that they're applying for, and I'll explain more about that, but would like to get approval to add that to the agenda. Maybe we put that item 8B, I guess.
Make a motion to add approval of the chair to sign a letter in support of Stuart Markham Healthcare to the agenda and make it 8B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed, that motion carries unanimously. And then also another motion that I'm looking for is to, in light of some folks that are here this evening that I know are in support of or want to talk about and recognize our item 8A, wondering if we can get a motion to move that up in the agenda to be the first item of business that we take on this evening.
I make a motion that we move that up into the agenda to 5C.
Commissioner, how about maybe we do that as,
Sorry, I can't see it.
Or
well, yeah, make it 4A or 5A.
4A. All right, 4A.
Yeah,
Second.
okay. So we'll make that, item 8A now becomes item 4A. Get a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, none opposed, that motion carries unanimously. All right, so that takes care of that business. Writing fast here. So announcements by the chair. We have really no announcements other than that we have an upcoming commission, our next upcoming commission meeting is our regularly scheduled 9 a.m. meeting, which is Monday, May the 3rd. So that takes care of our initial business here. And I think next item will be our proclamation in support of National Correctional Officers and Employees Week. And I've asked Commissioner Hanson to read that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners designating May 2nd through 8th, 2021 as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week in Flagler County. Whereas the Flagler Sheriff's Office detention deputies are correctional employees in Flagler County that form a core element of the public safety team in our community. And whereas our detention deputies provide security, supervision, educational, and treatment services for more than 3,500 individual cases in the course of a calendar year, and in recent years, their duties have become increasingly complex and demanding. And whereas in Flagler County, professional detention deputies have a co-equal role with law enforcement and fire rescue colleagues, engaging in dangerous and potentially life-threatening situations on a daily basis. And whereas members of the Flagler County community need to fully recognize and understand the complex, dangerous, and challenging responsibilities carried out daily by every staff member working in the Sheriff Perry Hall Inmate Detention Facility. And whereas each detention facility staff member accepts enormous personal and professional responsibility in serving the inmates in a fair and secure custodial setting with professionalism, dedication, and courage. And whereas the work of the Flagler Sheriff's Office Detention Facility team is increasingly recognized and understood as one of the foundations of public safety in Flagler County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, we hereby proclaim the week of May 2nd through the 8th, 2021, as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week in Flagler County. We encourage all of our residents to join in recognition and appreciation of the outstanding service our professional detention deputies provide for the safety and welfare of our community. Adopted this 19th day of May, 2021, attested to by Tom Bexley, the Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller, and signed by our Chairman, Donald O'Brien.
Chief, did you want to say a few words, please?
I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'll...
I think you can do that.
I'll extend gratitude, thank you.
Please introduce yourself, and then you can remove the mask, Chief, while you're speaking, if that's okay.
I'm Chief Daniel Engert, and on behalf of all the detention deputies at the Flagler County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Staley, we appreciate the support that we receive from this commission. I've been here a full year now, and it's very much a pleasure and honor to work in Flagler County and to have the support of the commission that we do have. So we're very appreciative, and we look forward to celebrating this week with our team, and we certainly appreciate your proclamation today.
Well, we thank you, Chief,
Chief.
yes, and
Thank you.
my fellow commissioners may have something to say, but I'll tell you, we're real thrilled that you're here with us in Flagler County, and I know you've made great strides already, following up on a well-run operation before and taking us into the future, and we sure appreciate that very much. Anything else, Commissioners?
Just want to say, great job.
Yeah, job well done.
Thank you. We're behind you 100%.
Glad you're here.
Now, the other chief wants to take a photo, so that's okay. Can you guys maybe just come up here and we'll just do that with you? Yeah, you're okay with that, sir.
Don't worry, Mark, I got 3 over your head.
Oh, you do? Mine's gonna be the better picture.
Want to make a motion on that, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the proclamation National Correction Officers and Employment Week.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so again, as a reminder, we moved up item 8A, which is now item 4A, and that item is a resolution which basically declares this commission's support of the United States Constitution. I know this was something you brought to us, Commissioner Mullins, along with Commissioner Hanson. Do either one of you want to read it or kick it off, or
Split it if we can. I'd like to read the first part.
however you all want to do it?
I don't have a copy of it.
I don't either.
I have a copy. I can read it, or I can give it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to give maybe the background of why you're doing this?
Yeah, I want to go ahead and just do in favor. We have had so much in the country occur and attack the Constitution. There's so many threats against it right now, foreign and domestic, that I think it's very important that we as a county show that we stand strong with it. The First Amendment, we've seen a president that was stripped of it while he was a president. We've seen the Second Amendment is facing challenges right now and issues right now from very far radical individuals. And I think we just, freedom of religion is one of them as well, that we have faced that. And I think that we as a county, and many more of the amendments, and I think we as a county need to stand very strongly. Just recently, it was stated in by the liberal blogger that we spent way too much time on this. We actually spent 32 minutes on proclamations and recognitions last meeting. So with just Fair Housing Month, Child Abuse Prevention Month, Water Conservation, Sexual Assault, Crime Victims, National Health Care. And I think it's very important that we spend some time and recognize our Constitution, the foundation of this country. I was looking at it as a Second Amendment, totally focused in on that. And then by a brilliant idea by Commissioner Hanson, he said, why don't we look at all of them? When several citizens got up here and started speaking, they're all under attack right now. So I think it's very important that this county stands strong, shows that we stand behind it. And as some places have done sanctuary cities for immigration, we can do sanctuary for our constitutional amendment, our rights. So very excited to read this today, and I'll go ahead and start it off if everybody's ready. Marks this beautiful day here in Flagler. A resolution of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners in support of the United States of America Constitution. Whereas the United States of America laid the foundations of its government on a written constitution, and whereas that constitution provided a structure of government designed to prevent the rise of tyranny through a carefully designated system of separation of powers, preventing any one branch of that government from obtaining a dangerous advantage over the states and the people. And whereas the Constitution embodies a Bill of Rights protecting citizens' most cherished liberties to include freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right to peaceful assembly, the right to petition the government for redress of grievances, the right to bear arms, the right to be secure in their property and possessions, and the rights against self-incrimination, the right to due process and fair trials before an impartial jury, and other essential rights and protections necessary to a free people. And I'm going to turn it over to
And whereas that Constitution reserves all powers not specifically granted to the federal government, to the states and the people. And whereas since the founding of this country, much blood and treasure have been expended defending that Constitution and the freedoms it supports. And whereas the members of this board and other elected officials of Flagler County have taken a solemn oath to defend that Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Now, therefore, we do firmly resolve to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to resist any intrusions on the sacred rights protected by that Constitution.
Okay, so gentlemen, that is the introduction of the resolution. Do we have any discussion on this item?
No, but I think that I support the resolution as written, and I think it's important, both by making the resolution, but also in its educational value, because I think sometimes in our schools, our children aren't learning as much about history and our government as they should. So by putting forth this resolution, maybe it will give people a chance to review that with their children and so, which will be good for our overall education level that we have and for the future.
I think it's important to note, and we say it in the resolution, that every elected official and everybody that works for the government takes this oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's everybody that works for the government takes that oath. So we're just emphasizing that we are very serious about this.
I want to put in there, too, that the sheriff has discussed it with me, and he stands strongly behind it as well.
Anybody else? I thank you, Commissioners, for bringing this forward, and I'm 150% behind it and support you, and proud to be able to be, participate and vote for it when we get to it. So our normal, Commissioner Dance, anything?
No, I was going to echo what Commissioner Hanson said, just about, that we've taken the oath to defend it, and I'm glad to reaffirm.
Okay. All right, so our normal course of business on items is to open this up for public comment before we vote on it. So anyone from the public wish to come forward? Just please state your name. You're welcome, Mike, to take the mask off if you like, if that helps.
Yeah, I'm Mike Cochill of Palm Coast. This whole thing is, to me, it's outrageous, particularly the commissioner bringing up a First Amendment and Second Amendment. So it's directed toward those two things, no matter how you say or how you add in all other amendments. It's that. This is right-wing nonsense, and you're all falling for it. And it's deplorable to me because you're all good Americans. You don't need to reaffirm being Americans. Some of you are honorable, have been honorable military, senior military officers. Every day you put on that uniform, you reaffirm the oath that you took. I took it as a defense person for 25 years. I don't need to reaffirm it, and you don't need to reaffirm it to me. I know that you stand for that Constitution. I don't think any of these back here believe for a moment that you don't. So reaffirming it is just paying homage to the right wing of America. I noticed that the commissioner mentioned a couple of instances, that attacks upon our Constitution, foreign and domestic. The only domestic attack on our Constitution recently has been January 6th with the insurrection. So I wanted to bring that up, and I wanted to take this to its illogical extreme. So what next? We all have to wear flag pins? Okay, here's a copy of the Constitution, right? Are we going to take it to the ultimate extreme that someday everybody has to carry a copy of the Constitution like they did in communist China during the Red Surge? Is that what we're going to, so that we get stopped in the street and ask if we're carrying a Constitution and then are required to quote verbatim, as they did, the Red Guard did demand back during Mao Zedong's regime? Is that what we're coming to in this country when you do things like this? Because that's where it leads. You don't have your Constitution, off to a re-education camp. That's what we're leading to. You don't need to reaffirm your Americanness. You don't need to reaffirm your devotion. I know that. These people know it. Flagler County knows it. The country knows it.
Okay. Folks, I know, hold on, time out. This gentleman has the floor, and we run a respectful, civil meeting here. That's why that's part of this Constitution here that we're talking about. But again, let's let this gentleman have his time, and we need to be respectful. Thank you, Mike.
That's all. I just wanted to say that maybe if some people don't know that you are honorable Americans, I do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right. Again, a reminder, you get 3 minutes, but we're going to be respectful because that's the way we run our meetings. We run a civil meeting, and we're glad and happy to listen to anybody that wants to come speak on agenda items or when we get to community outreach and have regular public dialogue. So anybody else like to speak on this item? That's what we're talking about right now, this item.
Jane Gentile Yude, born American citizen. We have a constitution written by our forefathers and reaffirmed by the state of Florida. None of you up here were elected to interfere in constitutional issues which are not your responsibility to reaffirm. I happen to be a registered Republican. I am running as NPA because our issues in Flagler County have nothing to do with the Constitution. Your job is to take care of the needs of the residents of your district and the entire county. There is nothing in your job description to take care of the county that has anything to do with your power or your right to rewrite or reaffirm anything that is none of your business. You took an oath, every one of you, that you would defend the Constitution as written. None of you took an oath under Florida Statute 350 that says you reserve the right to make alterations. You, Mr. Sullivan, and you, Mr. Hanson, both were in the service. You also had to take an oath. Why do you feel, when you were in the Navy, gentlemen, did you feel an obligation to rewrite the Constitution when you were in the service? I think this is actually frightening. What are you going to do next? Demand that everybody register as a Republican? And you're going to behead Democrats and throw them out? Because you apparently all think that was okay. To put people on trains? To behead liberals? The issues in Flagler County have nothing to do with party. They have nothing to do with the federal government. They have to do with making sure that our health, welfare, and safety is intact, that our water is safe, that we can drive on our roads, that we have proper lighting, that we have proper recreation, that most of all, we have proper police and fire rescue. And to me, fire rescue is doing a better job than anyone else in this county. Shame on any of you who dare attempt to tread on federal issues that are not your job to rewrite or reaffirm. The Constitution has been written. Obey it or leave the podium.
Next. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, we don't want to waste a lot of time, so let's go. Keep our transitions going here, okay? Sir?
Joe Kaboski, Palm Coast. I think,
Joe, in the mic, please.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I think you guys are doing the right move for what's going on in this country. These people talk about everybody knows the Constitution and everybody follows it, and why should we be doing this? Well, why don't you talk to some of the people in New York State and California and what they're doing to our Constitution? Why don't you talk to some of the people in the House, especially the House, that are bringing up bills to redo our Constitution, take away our gun rights, shut our speech down? They've already done it with the the internet, these guys, Facebook and all of them. They've already shut you guys down. They've shut half of the people in here down. Now, that is going against the Constitution. And when our president writes an executive order to take away your guns, what are we going to do about it in Flagler County? What are we going to do about it when we get busloads of illegal aliens that have the COVID-19 with them, and they're going to put them in our county so we can get our COVID-19 up? and be part of the statistics that they're doing. So yes, we got to stop it here because up there, they're not doing a good job. You guys are, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Mr. Kapowski. Next speaker, please. Folks, we cannot, again, this is not part of our procedures here, and civil meetings means we don't do that, okay? That's not part of the decorum here. And I know some of you have not been in our meetings before. I'm just trying to keep things consistent with how we run our meetings every single time. Thank you. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Gregory Reed. I'm from Palm Coast, Florida. And what I will say is I can appreciate this council reaffirming the fact that you're following the Constitution. I understand the Constitution was given by the founding fathers years ago for us to follow. We have elected officials in our federal government that aren't following the Constitution as laid out. So I'm glad to say or see that you're willing to stand on the fact that the Constitution was written. And I understand we're all supposed to be following the Constitution, but our federal government is not even following it. So in certain instances, I mean, I've seen federal officials who swear to uphold the Constitution, and they're doing everything against what the Constitution has written. So as far as being a citizen here in Flagler County, I can appreciate what you're doing because this is the roadmap. This is the rule book, what we follow. Not because I feel like this, that, and the other. I mean, I'm 60-something years old, and we still have to debate if we're going to have English as our language of the country. You know, I mean, seriously, there are certain traditions that are already set. So as far as following the Constitution and reaffirming that this is what we follow, I have no problem with it. Whether people have served in the military and they've sworn an oath, that's great. But for some reason in this climate, you know, people say an insurrection happened January 6th. There's been an insurrection all last summer. There have been not peaceful protests, but there have been rioting that they said was peaceful protests. That's unconstitutional. When you can take somebody's property and burn it to the ground, and for some reason you don't think that your government's supposed to come in and protect not just your life, but your property, something is wrong. That's what the Constitution states, that it's you guys are people who are in charge are supposed to stand up and uphold the Constitution. So in this climate, I think it's great what you're doing. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker, please. If you want to come up and speak, be ready, okay? Because we want to keep the transitions going here. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for being civil here. Appreciate it.
My name is Norman Roy. I live in Palm Coast. I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Service. Served in the Cold War, which is America's longest Cold War. We all lost 4 submarines sunk during that war, and numerous others seriously damaged to the point that they had to be decommissioned. I'm very proud to see that the council is passing this resolution to support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. There are a lot of external threats against especially free speech, namely from Communist China. FreedomHouse.org wrote a report called Beijing's Global Megaphone. It's about 6 pages long. If you go online, you can check it out. Throughout the world, they've got a plan. They've got over 1 million people involved in this. What they're doing is disinformation, like we see on mainstream media, or censorship with big tech. It's not just the United States, it's all over the world. It's very important that we counter that by standing up and defending our Bill of Rights. Make sure our students are educated in that. I myself would be willing to go to any high school history teacher, which I used to do when I lived in Situate, Rhode Island, and talk to them about the submarine service and what we did, how we actually destroyed the Japanese fleet during World War II. And and some other, I'll talk about some other things. Kind of running out of time, but my main concern is freedom of speech. That is very important. Freedom of religion, the Second Amendment and all the other Bill of Rights. We should not touch them. We should reaffirm it. We should be proud of the fact that this county stands for that. And I congratulate you, every one of you, for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, we're going to close public comment. Bring it back. Any last comments or discussion from the commission?
I have actually a couple. I think it'd be great if there was a day where we carried the Constitution around and reminded ourselves daily of it. But, it's no different than having to carry around a card. I don't think anyone should be forced to carry anything, just like shouldn't be carrying vaccination cards. And thank goodness our governor stood strong with that, with a lot of pressure in the country. I also want to say it's very exciting that we're talking about this today on the hinges of our governor signing an anti-riot bill, which was very important for this state, very important, because just as the gentleman said, we weren't faced with property being burned. We weren't faced here with our things and items being torn down. We've got a congressman, a female congressman, calling for more violence up there right now, and it's insane. But that's why we've got a strong governor, and that's why we've got that strong law in place, and it's very exciting to see this happen today on the hinges of it. That's all I have.
All right, seeing no other,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I did have one thing, I just to comment, that one of the reasons we're doing this is that right now, at the national level, and sometimes at the state level, remember our Constitution Declaration of Independence talked about states' rights. So the Constitution does include actions that affect both us at the state and at the local level. So there is concern right now among many of us that those rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution are being attempted to be changed and modified to bring more power back to the central government. That is not the intent of our forefathers, and I think actions like we're taking today help to educate people about that and make sure that that does not happen.
every time we have a land use matter, it involves due process. There's interwovenness with the Constitution in everything that we do. Okay, any other discussion?
Can I read this real quick? We'll take but a second. This Thomas Jefferson, if there be anyone among us who would wish to dissolve this union or to change its republican form, let them stand undisturbed as monuments of the safety which error of opinion may be tolerated, where reason is left free to combat it. That was the first inaugural address, March 4th, 1801.
Okay, did I get a motion on this? I can't remember if we did. All right, can we have a motion on this item?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution stating that we are protecting the U.S. Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. We've had public comment. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for respectfulness and decorum today. Appreciate it. Okay, next item on our agenda is our community outreach portion. And again, I'll read our instructions there. This is a 30-minute time period allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission, and speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair. So the community outreach portion of our agenda is open. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Mike McCauley. I'm a resident of Flagler County for the last 23 years. I've been a government teacher for 25 years. Also owned a painting company for 42 years called McCauley & Sons. I'm here today to talk about pickleball, not as serious as the Constitution, obviously. And I'd like to have all the pickleball people to stand up, please, that are here, and hopefully they'll have a few comments to make. I think we need to expand pickleball in Flagler Beach, especially since we do not have any courts there. We have some line courts. I also would like to thank Dave Sullivan and Greg Hansen for coming and meeting me to look at some of the different sites that are possibilities to build a pickleball court. Presently, we do not have in Flagler Beach any pickleball courts. If we can find property, which we seldom have, and there's very little land in Flagler Beach, obviously underneath the bridge, but the best area to build pickleball courts is at Wadsworth Park. And Greg and Dave, we took them over and showed them some of the spots in Wadsworth that were very positive. To build 4 pickleball courts, all you need is 120 feet by 64 feet. In other words, the size of a tennis ball court. A tennis court will hold 4 pickleball courts. And we would very much like, hopefully, for you to appropriate money in the future for pickleball. I think there's a lot of good reasons to do that. One, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in Flagler County. It's probably the fastest growing sport in Florida or in the United States. And I sent all that information to you a couple weeks ago. Let's see what else. I have a minute and 20 seconds.
You don't have to use it all if you don't want to.
Stop. The best place probably to put the courts is near the volleyball courts in Wadsworth Park. I think that's a good area because there's plenty of parking and there's bathrooms really close there, and it's very close to the softball field, so the pinging sound won't bother the tennis players. I hope that you will talk about this amongst yourselves in the future, and hopefully we'll have other people to speak about this too.
Okay, thank you, sir. By the way, is this a pickleball?
That is a pickleball. It has 40 holes in it, and it goes all over the place, and we are willing to give you free lessons anytime we get a new court. And it's good for your blood pressure, too.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment, community outreach?
Hi, my name's Dan McIntyre. I've lived in Flagler County for 23 years. I did work for the county for about 13 years, so I was a county employee, and I'm retired from the county. First of all, I'd like to mention Wadsworth Park. You know, I live in the area there at Wadsworth, and once I moved to the area, I've always been a very athletic person, looking for things to do around Flagler County and parks to go to, things to do. I was an avid racquetball player all my life, ever since the 70s when I first started that sport. And I was really excited to find racquetball right there in Wadsworth Park. But as the years go by, racquetball just sort of gone downhill. Hardly anyone plays racquetball anymore. And of course, the racquetball guys that I've been playing with, you know, we just sort of fell apart. We all got older, and then this sport came along, pickleball. And we got very excited about pickleball. We headed up to Belterra up there. They had free paddles. You know, you get lessons. They would show you how to play. And several of us went up there and learned how to play pickleball. So where did we play pickleball? Malacompra. Malacompra was probably 20, 25 minutes from my home, but it was a really exciting, very good sport for someone that likes athletics, pickleball is. And we got up there, and I don't know if you guys have been up there lately, but pickleball is very crowded. You go up there, and it might be 30 people up there trying to play on 3 courts, and because that's the only ones in that area up there that you can play on, unless you have a condo, you belong to a condo association or a homeowners association. There's quite a few of those around the area that have pickleball courts. You know, they come right in. They're part of the whole complex. But we need pickleball courts. You know, you guys built Malacompra, you built all the way, you went to the other end of the county and built Dixie Highway down there, the park down there where the horseshoes are. Yeah, you got 2 courts down there, 3 courts on the other end. Gosh, that's not very many pickleball courts. I mean, everybody I know wants to play pickleball, and there's just no place to play. So the biggest part of us, and most of the people I know, at least once or twice, we drive all the way down to Daytona to play pickleball because you can play down there. Plenty of room. You don't have to wait. Just a really exciting place to play that down there. And we'd love to have more courts here in Flagler County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Anyone else wish to speak during public comment here?
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Rick Howe. I'm a resident of Palm Coast. Moved here about 3 years ago from Charleston, South Carolina. And avid tennis player, basketball coach in high school and everything else like that. So very active. In Charleston, we played a lot of tennis. And we had 17 clay courts, and we had one hard tennis court, and no pickleball courts. But then pickleball, about 3 years ago, we talked to the tennis pro and got him to put 4 pickleball courts on the hard tennis court. And we started out with maybe only like 10 people, and we ended up with over 40. So really growing fast. Since we moved down here to Florida, we've had a great time playing a little tennis. Pandemic kind of slowed that down a little bit, but now going to start playing more pickleball. And we just went to a pickleball tournament up in St. Augustine, and you wouldn't believe the amount of people. They're all different ages, different levels, everything else like that. So it's a growing sport, especially here in Florida, especially with people my age and everything. So if you would consider maybe having some pickleball courts here in Flagler County, we very much appreciate it. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Sir.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman. Ken Bryan, City Commissioner, Flagler Beach. I think you all know that the Commissioner from Flagler Beach sent a letter of endorsement for the pickleball courts in support of them. Mr. McCauley and so many others came to me a couple of months ago with a plan on actually expanding the pickleball courts. When we do get into our ages of 70, it is important that we do some activities in order to keep the blood pressure up and keep the blood flowing and become as agile as we possibly can. I didn't know anything about pickleball, but I've got very familiar with these guys here. I talked to Amy, who's with the Tourist Development Council, and actually she's starting to get involved with pickleball herself. It's a very, very good sport in that it's very inexpensive to get in. You don't have to be very agile, and you don't have to be in your 30s or 40s in order to play it, so you could actually have a non-contact type sport that keeps you busy and keeps you active in order to keep moving. Flagler Beach is growing, as you all know, because of a lot of development, all that's there. So it's obvious going to be a lot of people that are interested in the pickleball. So I really encourage you to at least seriously consider this. We can look at possibly some Tourist Development Council dollars as well, because there are such things as tournaments, and those tournaments brings heads to beds. Because we found out that there was one tournament that they had, and they raised like $10,000, $15,000 over the weekend with one pickleball tournament. So there could be multiple tournaments going on. Palm Coast is actually building some more pickleball courts themselves. So this is something that's actually growing, and I think it could benefit the community significantly as far as helping us older guys get involved, and as well as ladies. And there's a lot of interest in Flagler Beach. They do use the tennis courts, so sometimes there are competitive types of things going on, because the pickleball court people want to play pickleball. Of course, the tennis people want to play tennis, so we're getting very crowded in that area in that respect. So whatever you can do in order to help with this initiative, I tremendously support it, and the commission from Flagler Beach support it as well. So thank you very much for your time.
So, Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
You play pickleball?
I'm learning. I mean, you know, bad knees and ankles and elbows and all that kind of stuff. I used to play racquetball and all of that. So I'm actually going to start picking up the sport myself as well.
So I'm formulating an idea, because I know that Palm Coast City Councilman Nick Kloufis is an avid pickleball player, and I'm thinking maybe a little challenge match between...
I have no problem with that. I love
you
challenges.
two.
Wait a minute. Is he 72, my age group here?
It would do a lot of good for you to pound him.
Okay, not a problem. It sounds like a challenge. I'll take that on. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Hi, my name is Sandy Cipollone, and I'm a homeowner in Flagler Beach. And I'm one of a group of about 10 or so people, and there's several groups of us that play in Flagler Beach at Wickline. And 2 years ago, the city drew lines, gave us permission to draw lines on the tennis courts there, and that's where we play. We've been playing there now for 2 years, and this past, I'd say, 6 weeks, a month, we have people stop by our courts while we're playing and ask us that they've just moved to Flagler Beach and they want to play pickleball, and where is a place that they can play with designated courts where they don't have to bring their own net. They're just learning how to play, and they want to learn. And so it's very popular, it's growing. Also, I think it's a really nice thing that maybe we all can do for our community and for the members of our community. It's something really fun to do, and we'd be glad to teach you how. Just come on out. We've got extra paddles and balls, and I hope you decide to help us and get some courts in Flagler Beach. We'd really like that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cipollone. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jimmy Sanchez, 11-year resident of Palm Coast. Thank you for just listening for this little comment. I have to personally thank Commissioner Hanson. He was instrumental in getting us lines on the Flagler County tennis courts on A1A, and we appreciate that. But we've actually overrun that now. So we've taken over space. We're bringing our own nets, and we're growing. On a Friday afternoon, about rain last weekend, the Flagler Malacompa courts had 35 people playing. The A1A tennis courts had 3 sets of nets and about 8 people. So that's another 35, 40 people. And I just cautiously drove over to Holland Park, and they're using tennis courts, painted lines, and they had 4 courts going that day. If I had a drone fly over, you would have had over 125, 130 people playing on a really beautiful day. Now, the interesting part is, somebody mentioned that Palm Coast is growing, is going to build some courts. Those are going to be paid to play, and they're going to just make 4, and that's not going to work out too effectively, because I'm listening to the people on the courts today, yesterday, and the day before, because we built the courts, you guys did, August 16th. In 2016, you built 5 courts, 3 in Malacompa and 2 in Dixie. I can tell you the time that you want to go to play, it's a 2-hour window now if you're lucky, and it's between 12 and 2 on a hot day. If you get there anything after 2:30, 3 o'clock, it's going to be full. The only time we have a little bit of a problem with Holland Park, it's a wind tunnel. So we may not get people there in the afternoon because the wind picks up after 10 or 11. But the players and the people that are coming around, and not to mention Malacompa gets a lot of business from people that come in, like somebody mentioned heads or beds. We're happy to involve them. So that just makes Flagler County grow better and bigger. But now this sport is a social sport. We don't turn anybody around. We don't turn anybody down. We actually have them play starting out with us. So I was very fortunate to find a sport. I was an old racquetball player. Racquetball finished out, pretty much died out when I built the last indoor court, died in 2016. I met Dan playing racquetball 11 years ago, but I liked indoor. He played outdoor at Wadsworth Park. So we're fortunately been friends for at least 10 years. And I've met a lot of our friends here in Palm Coast that it's grown this much. And you have this huge representation of your demographics are older people, 50 and over, that play pickleball. And we appreciate you guys taking a look at this. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Hanson, thank you for helping us out in the pickleball community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. All right, anyone else for public comment?
Anyone else for pickleball, come ahead of me, please. No, go pick, I want to do pickleball first.
Good evening. My name is George Opelka. I live in Palm Coast. I'm here to talk about pickleball. I know most of these people here and play with them on Saturday or Sunday at Malacompa. This is, first of all, thanks for listening to everybody here. To me, this is an IQ test, this pickleball thing. It gets people like me off the couch. It gets my comrades off the couch and gets us doing something that's social, gets your blood flowing. It's easy to do. It's not intimidating. I also think it's something for kids. You know, nobody talks about kids. I'm all about kids. And it's not just an old folks game. It's, you go, the further south you go, you see kids playing pickleball now too. So I'm not going to take the whole 3 minutes. I'm just going to tell you, thank you for listening. If you're interested, assign a task force, and I think you'll come up with the right solution. I do think there's an opportunity for heads to beds, but then you have to make a bigger investment in the infrastructure to support a big enough facility to host those kind of events. But I'm selfish. I just want stuff for us here locally to play. So again, thank you for listening to everybody here tonight, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Opelka. All right, anybody else?
Please. Jane Gentile, U, 3 Magnolia Drive North. That sounds like, great, I should try that.
Ms. Hughes, you might want to move that mic down a little bit.
Sure. Jane Gentile, U, 3 Magnolia Drive North. 19-year resident, celebrated 19 years, April 12th, last week. Allocation, I would like item 7J pulled from the agenda because it has to do with Bing's Landing. Please, okay? I'm here on 2 other issues, just under community outreach. I know you probably will not answer me at this very moment, but I am concerned well over a year ago, an ordinance, a tethering ordinance was supposed to be reworked. There's a tethering ordinance proposed in Tallahassee, statewide, which is a very, very fair ordinance, which protects dogs from being chained for hours at a time. Mr. Mullins said months ago this was a very, very complicated ordinance. It's almost a year. Summer is coming. I see on Facebook all animals who are dying. We care about our rights. We need to care about animal rights. Would somebody please review the tethering ordinance that is in front of the state legislature and see if you could work with this for Flagler County? Dogs are very much a part of our families today. Thank you. My other issue is, and I have worked with, I have to thank Jerry very, very much. I know Jerry would like to go out and knock that Hotel California down tomorrow. What is holding up knocking down this unhealthy monstrosity that has been the scene of an almost suicide, of drugs, of crimes? You know, we have our constitutional rights to live in a community where we are not surrounded by unhealthy, derelict situations, which is also costing our sheriff money. Jerry told me in January, I want to get them knocked down. They've had enough time to, the owners, to do stuff. They're not doing anything. And I know Jerry was very passionate about wanting to go out for bids to knock down this monstrosity by February. We have thousands of people living around this derelict area. We pay our taxes. Please do something to knock this down. The people have been given too much time, and you have people paying taxes whose lives are affected, and so is the sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Anyone else for community outreach? Okay, we're going to deem you to be the last speaker for this section. Thank you. Is it for each one of us? Well, we give it to the clerk. That'll get it in the public record, and then we'd be glad to make copies and circulate it for you. That's okay. Yes.
Hi, hello, I'm Renee DeAngelis. I'm a resident of Palm Coast for 19 years, and I'm here representing the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation. I also serve on the Flagler Opioid Task Force, as well as Flagler ORS as their education chairperson, and I also collaborate with the Flagler Youth Coalition. And that being said, on the 14th of January in 2019, The Flagler Countywide Opioid Task Force spoke in front of all of you about the opioid crisis in Flagler County. That was 2.5 years ago. Since then, there have been some grassroots organizations working on this problem, but we do not feel as though it's being addressed in the manner it needs to be in order to move forward with beginning to solve this problem. So here I am again, 2.5 years later, and I thank Joe Mullins for being a voice for this crisis in the county. Thank you, Joe. Okay, that being said, when COVID-19 hit us in 2020, up until September 28th in 2020, we had more overdose deaths than deaths by COVID. And yet the county, took COVID very seriously as a health crisis, and validly so. Now that crisis looks like it's going to be fading away. We've done a great job, and it's on its way out. The crisis that remains, though, is the opioid crisis. That is not going away, and it continues to grow as our county population grows. Okay, that being said, we need to respond to the opioid crisis as though it is a health crisis also, a public health crisis. And the overdoses we are seeing are just the tip of the iceberg. They're just the official ones that we know of. There are many, many more behind the scenes that we're not aware of publicly. Okay. Ironically, we had a detox center at one time here in Flagler County, and this problem is growing, yet we no longer have the detox center. I don't know why. I don't know why it's gone, but it is. And we have no facilities and no way to help people in our county that have addiction to opiates. They get sent and shipped off to other counties to be helped. And it is time that we have facilities here in our county. Okay, it is the job of government and our elected officials to protect and safeguard the health of its citizens. This job should not be left only to groups like the organizations I mentioned previously. It is time for our county government to add to their agenda the securing of programs and facilities that address the opioid crisis in Flagler County. We need our elected officials to work in conjunction with grassroots efforts to achieve this. And then a footnote to this, the Drug Court Foundation and Flagler Ords both have received a Narcan grant from the state of Florida. We would be glad to train your staffs and distribute Narcan. We have, in the first quarter of 2021, distributed 1,000 units between both organizations for free that normally cost $200 a unit. That's $200,000 worth of Narcan. This indicates that we have a big problem here that we need to start all working on together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeAngelis. All right, I'm going to close the community outreach portion of our agenda here. Commissioner Hanson, you had chimed in earlier.
Well, if we want to give a kind of response to the pickleballers, but.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Well, we're aware, I think we all are aware that the pickleball courts are sadly lacking. And we have a sort of a plan in our hip pocket about putting courts in Malacompa and Wadsworth Park. But again, it's funding. It's just to build, here we just heard about we need a detox center here for the opioid crisis. So which is more important, pickleball courts or a detox center? So those are the kind of issues that we as your commission face. I would like to put pickleball courts in, but it takes money, and money is a rare commodity in this county. So we're well aware of the pickleball issue, and we're doing our best to try to build some more. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, just a couple. I'm clearly not an expert on pickleball, but I do live in a community where we are going to build in Grand Haven. We're going to build 2 more. We have 2 there, courts there now, and 2 more. But as this evolves, it turns out that pickleball always has one bad effect, and that people do get injured like they do in all sports, but going backwards is tough for people as they get older. And so one of the proposals at Grand Haven is to build a cushioned pickleball court. Well, that adds quite a bit of money to the cost, but I don't know if that's going to be something, it's like an additional $25,000 per court. So, so there are issues that we need to discuss. The second issue is, as head of the Tourist Development Committee, we'll meet again on Wednesday, just to say we can use tourist development money for something isn't that easy. You have to prove that people from outside the county are going to come here. And we know in Ormond, there's a giant pickleball arena which is going to attract the big tournaments. I'm not saying you couldn't get a small one, but 4 pickleball courts is not enough for almost any kind of tournament. So I think there are issues that need to be discussed and looked at. And then the third one that Commissioner Hanson brought up, funding. I don't think I think we got to look at this, look at the possibilities, and maybe do a whole review of how many pickleball courts there actually are in Flagler County, not just the public ones, to get an idea of what the capabilities are. So those are just a couple of thoughts I have on it, that's all.
Commissioner,
Yeah, I was just going to bring a little history, and we did look at using TDC money, and we were going to build a complex out at Malacompra, but the threat of the Ormond Beach one, just kind of squashed that down. So yeah, we can't use TDC money to build these courts. That's not a correct use of that money.
Okay. Mr. Cameron, a couple things. The issue, you want to just give an update of where we are with the motel that we're hopefully going to get. I know that's moving along, and again, talk about the Constitution, it's back to private property rights and due process.
Well, that's exactly what's in play is due process. We gave deadlines to the owner, and the owner realized that it was a matter of time before his time ran out, and he effected a sale. Unfortunately, he sold it to 2 different people. There are 2 brothers involved, and one sold it to one party, one to the other. They're trying to resolve that issue. The new owners have asked what it would take to get us to stop the process that we're involved in for ultimate demolition. And the existing owners have asked us to drop all fines, to excuse them from about probably $100,000 worth of fines. We have refused to do that they've had every opportunity to correct this, and they haven't done it. The new owner, we told them that we were going to proceed with the legislation, with the litigation, which would apply to them if they become the new owners. And the only way that we would pause that is if they put up a $250,000 cash deposit that could not be refunded until they had their first major inspection. They pulled their permits, got their plans approved, commenced the renovation that they planned to do, and then they could have the $250,000 refunded to use to complete the project. But we're not giving much quarter on this. The law, in order to keep the county from violating the Fourth Amendment, which is for people to be secure in their property, and the Fifth Amendment that guarantees due process, then we have to follow this. It required 3 services. We've affected the first 2 services on them. I've just been informed that the 3rd service has been done. The next step in this is the secure a hearing, which should be fairly quickly because the sheriff has given us a letter saying that this constitutes a community emergency, and that should get us into court rather quickly. The parallel sale that's going on, we don't know if it'll be affected or not, but we're approaching the end of this process one way or another. Thank goodness.
Okay. And I don't know if my fellow commissioners are aware of any, I'm not aware of any current state legislation that's in process right now regarding dog tethering or animal tethering. Maybe you can ask our lobbyist so we can get educated about that, as Ms. You'd brought up. I mean, unless she has a bill number she could tell us about, because I'm not sure about it. That'd be great, thank you. And then I, for one, would need to be re-educated about where we are with our local ordinance, or whether we had anything, a deliverable on that, or where. I just don't remember, I apologize.
Yeah, at present, we looked at the local ordinance, and you know, it's a balancing of interest. Folks on the west side of the county that have a lot of hunting dogs, you know, would be adversely affected by that ordinance, and so it's kind of stayed at a status quo.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I thought there was, we were going to coordinate more with Palm Coast that was coming up with an ordinance to see what they ended up with before we were going to take any further action. Does anybody remember that? I thought we did say that.
The real issue with this is tethering is defined as putting a dog on a leash or chain or run without a human accompanying him. There are some legitimate reasons to do that for various periods of time, and it's very difficult to write an ordinance that accommodates all of those legitimate uses without having an enforcement problem, because you don't know how long the dog has been out there, and we have cruelty to animal ordinances, and putting a dog in the sun with no water and that sort of stuff, tied up or in a kennel, is clearly an abuse of the animals. So we do have ordinances we can apply in those extreme cases.
Okay, any clarification or anything you want to bring forward regarding some of the issues that Ms. DeAngelis raised with respect to?
Well, she raised the issue of the grant that we have received from Florida Inland Navigation. It was my instructions.
No, her comments were regarding the opioid situation.
The opioid, we are proceeding. There are grants that are going to be available until we find out the criteria for those grants. We'll be able to do that. The solution may very well be regional facilities, because these facilities cost a lot of money. And, you know, to find one that's fairly centrally located that would serve 2 or even 3 counties is probably going to be the ultimate solution for getting a state-of-the-art. I went through the process of getting a detox mental health facility up in St. Johns County. It took 10 years to get it.
And we're going to talk later about an item regarding SMA's work on getting a medically assisted treatment center here in Flagler County. So, I mean, that's one item, and there's a lot of work being done by a number of groups in the community, so I don't know if there's one specific answer.
Mr. Hadid has just informed me that Attorney General has brought suit against some of the pharmaceutical companies, and there is going to be funding that comes out of that. And we don't know how much that funding will be. There are a lot of balls in the air on this, but in all probability, the wisest course of action on this is to find the provider with the most capacity, which at this point in this county would be SMA, and to funnel as many of those resources as you can into that so that you aren't just dabbling in this, that you're doing something serious to be able to address the problem.
And we're also coming along as a community with peer counseling as well. The chief Engert is working towards that in the jail. He has a lot of experience, and this is outside my field, but I know he has a lot of experience in that area that he brings forward from his other service. So
Yeah,
those are all-
there are separate grants available for that.
Commissioner Mullins?
No, I was just going to remind everybody at the last meeting when the opioid task force spoke, we talked about a partnership with Flagler Hospital, Epic Recovery Center, and they're already in the process of working with our jail system. So there's stuff happening. It's coming and moving. But I kind of reiterate with what Mr. Cameron said. We're going to have to look at this as a regional to be able to put the right resources behind it. But it's for the first time, we've gotten private sector behind it in these task force meetings, coming to them and willing to help and step up and do some things.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, we'll move forward on the agenda. And item 5B, again, is a time for us to make some comments on consent agenda items that we're not going to pull, but we might want to make a comment or reference to them. So commissioners, we'll start with you. Commissioner Dance, anything there?
No, sir.
Hanson?
Just I found out we had a little over $3 million in the pot for ESL lands. There's an issue coming up about the prioritization. So we have a little money to play with. So.
Okay.
Nothing.
Just, I wanted to just say that I strongly support the consent agenda, item 7J that was mentioned during the public comment. It's something we need to do. It's a wonderful park at Bing's Landing. What this does is improve what we have there, make it more accessible for the people to use, and also safer.
Okay. All right. So that's our discussion on the consent agenda items. So anything to actually pull, commissioners?
No.
Commissioner Sullivan?
No.
No, sir.
No, sir.
I'll pull item 7J in accordance with Ms. Yu's request. So if that's okay, then we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. So item 7J, Commissioner, Mr. Cameron, you want to just introduce this item, or somebody from staff? Oh, I
sir.
guess Mr. Telfer's here. He can do that.
Yeah, so there is, it's really pretty quick. There's a bulkhead that needed work out there,
Right.
and we pursued a grant and were successful in getting the grant for that purpose. And the item 7J is simply to receive, which is a legal requirement for unanticipated revenue, since the grant was not a part of our budgeting process. Now that it has come in, we must receive it. And this has nothing to do with applying for it or the grant being done. This is a technicality or formality that we must do when we receive funding on grants.
Okay, so that's an explanation of the item. Any questions, commissioners?
No, that's the way I understand it.
Okay, so we'll open this item up to public comment.
Thank you, Chair, for honoring my request. My concern on Bing's Landing, first of all, if you got a grant, because someone asked for it. I went in the court records, and in the lease, in the lawsuit with Bing's Landing, I don't see any movement whatsoever. And when I see repair of a seawall or whatever, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the illegal lease that was given to them in November 18 to build a building and to apply for a liquor license that would allow them to serve hard liquor, the first thing that came to my mind was having a nice seawall and a nice floating dock where big boats can come in, get drunk, go out and kill somebody. We're going to get sued. This is where I'm coming from. Spending any money that might enhance this restaurant, who is cashing in and making fools out of us, giving us $500 a month, and we're going for grants to enhance. Everything that is done to enhance Bing's Landing is enhancing these people's rights to make money. They've already cost us over $136,000 in legal fees, and I frankly wouldn't like to see anything spent on Bing's Landing until these people are thrown out. Very recently, even the lease that you gentlemen approved said that they will hold Flagler County harmless. Well, there's an action in court right now that the county was denied the right to say, oh, they said they would take our liability. This gentleman who slipped on a step was paid by the county because the county owns the building. And Mr. O'Brien, thank you. As an insurance agent, as an expert, you know very well that the owner of a property cannot indemnify, that the lessee cannot indemnify the owner of a property when it comes to liability. So I'm just concerned, any improvement that is done to Bing's Landing, why are we stalemating on doing something with this restaurant who is benefiting by every single improvement? I don't care if we get new land, new docks, and new seawalls. Bing's Landing has cost us a fortune with these people robbing the citizens, making a fortune. And I want to know what's going on with this lawsuit. I see nothing going on in court. It's 2.5 years, $140,000. Speaking of Bing's Landing, what's going on at Bing's Landing? That's why I brought it up, gentlemen. Not that we don't need the wall. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else on this item? All right, seeing no one come forward, I'll call a question. All those in favor of
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 7J.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get a motion until you just said that. Thank you, sir. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. So we are finished with the consent agenda. We will move on to general business, and item 8A we've already taken up. We moved that up to 4A and finished that. We added item 8B, which is a proposed letter of support to SMA for they're seeking to obtain funds to be used for a medication-assisted treatment program that they will assemble in Flagler County. I brought this forward because I had attended the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting, and this item was discussed, and the council voted to support this, to support SMA's, I guess it's an application, and I had said, well, I'd like to bring it forward to the commission to see if the commission would also like to piggyback on that as well. So that's.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve that you sign a letter in support of Stuart Marchman Healthcare.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second.
Just discussion, if we have discussion.
Yeah, please.
I just want to make sure I understand this, since it was just added today, that we do have some legislation going through up the state for mental health place. Is this the same thing, or is this different?
It's different, and it would be, would be part of SMA's operation over on Justice Lane.
But is this concerning mental health? Is it?
It has more to do with addiction
Okay.
services.
I was just trying to make it clear in my mind. We're talking about two different facilities.
Yeah, and I would
Okay.
ask for help, if you wouldn't mind, our representative here from SMA.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm Alicia Vincent. I'm Vice President of Services for SMA here in Flagler County. And we're located here in Bunnell at the Vince Carter Sanctuary. What we're asking for is we're asking for a letter of commitment to go along with the grant application that we are applying for, a SAMHSA grant for a medication-assisted treatment program, which we refer to as the MAT clinic. And that's for substance abuse also co-occurring, where individuals that are suffering from substance use disorder can come into the clinic, they're seen by the doctor. It's not a come in and be seen, get a prescription and leave. There are requirements that they have to participate in treatment to do this, so they will be accountable for meeting with their clinician. They'll also meet with their case manager, and we will have peers in the clinic to work with the individuals as well.
Just quickly, but this would be a separate facility in addition to what we have at the Vince Carter Center? It wouldn't be in the same place?
No, it would be located in the same facility,
So
yes,
it's
sir.
not a new facility, it's a
No.
new capability at
a-
the Vince Carter Center?
Correct, a new program.
Okay.
Correct.
And thank you, Alicia, for bailing me out on this. Just trying to get my head together on this. Other questions, commissioners?
No, I just think it's something we need to support because we, as the discussion earlier, it's good to put money into things that are working and things that are already here.
I just wanted
to beef them up. And I think
clear
this
my
is
mind
a
what
good
we were
move
talking
on our
about.
part.
Is there a funding commitment?
Not from us, Commissioner.
Okay.
As our letter states, the four things that we have in our letter would be, and that's two, I did want to get some clarification on that, but it would be for us to participate in your processes, which we do now anyway. And then, here, let me just get them real quick here. So the four things that we would commit to would be commit to representation for Flagler County Board of County Commissioners by participating at lunch and learns offered by Flagler Oars on substance use topics, which some of us are doing that now anyway. I think you do, Commissioner, and plus I'm committed to doing that as well. Commitment, this is a couple, something I wasn't positive about, and I need your help, Mr. Administrator. Commitment to having Narcan placed in all county first aid kits.
I would have to see what, well, certainly EMS, that's a given. But I would have to take a look and have the county attorney's office to look at if there is a Good Samaritan liability release on that before I could make that recommendation to you. Certainly, if you can do that without creating unnecessary liability for the county, I'd be all in favor of it.
You going to say something, Renee? I would say maybe we strike, we don't need to have all of these items in this letter. I mean, these were suggestions, right?
Suggestions,
So I would suggest we strike that one from the letter, the draft of the letter. And if we get to that, that's fine, but that one, I think, might be a little tougher deliverable. And then the last one was a commit from Flagler County Board of County Commissioners to have Flagler Fire and Rescue represented on the Flagler County Public Safety Coordinating Council. I don't know that we have, I mean, I represent us, and I'm not sure if we have anyone from Fire Services. But
We don't have anyone from Fire Services, but as the Public Safety Coordinating Committee returns to its core function, that would be a good idea. Because certainly the EMS portion of that is a public safety concern. Over 95% of our calls for service are for EMS.
So, I mean, Commissioners, my suggestion would be, if we can adopt the draft of this letter as written with removal of the Narcan item number 2 on the listing of commitments from us, no financial commitments, and see if we can't move that.
Yeah, I would support that.
You want to make a
Second.
motion? All right, so that's a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we allow you to sign the letter to SMA supporting their efforts,
With the removal of the,
with the removal of the Narcan issue.
okay. All right, we have a
Second.
second on that? All right. We have a motion and a second. All right, we'll open that one up to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item?
Thank you.
Karen A. All right, seeing no one else come forward, we'll close public comment. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. So we'll move on to, we have no public hearings, so we'll move on to item 10 on the agenda, and we'll start with County Administrator Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first arrived here, there had been a commitment by the board to construct a new library, or I was so informed. And that got delayed the first time because I was just coming on board. I knew that we had financial difficulties, but I had not had time to fully analyze the financial position of the county. It got delayed the second time because the grant money that was coming from the state was deleted. We ranked number 1 again this year, and it appears that that is going to be approved. So we had already gone through a process earlier on to select an architect. When you're dealing with engineers and architects, the law requires that you not talk price until after that selection has been made. We have made the selection some time back and never entered into those negotiations. We've now received from the architect a proposal which is presently being reviewed by the engineering department and the procurement department, and we will enter into negotiations with this architect for the design on the new library community center. So I just wanted the board to be aware that that's where we are in that process, and if there's any objection to me continuing down that path, I would entertain hearing that.
No objection from me.
So I will proceed down that path, and we will be bringing a contract to you hopefully in the fairly near future for the design of the library. One of the byproducts of the Leadership Academy has been with a number of the graduates and the present students. It has created a passion for continued learning and continued improvement of their leadership skills. And they're actually engaged in reading and courses on their own. So we have an example of that, someone that has become dedicated to the proposition of leadership improvement and constantly seeking ways to increase their knowledge of leadership. Our HR director has just completed a course with the National Association of Counties, or NACO, on high-performance leadership. She secured a scholarship to attend this, and she was, on April the 16th, graduated from that. It's an innovative online program that was developed by NACO by their Professional Development Academy in partnership with Fortune 1000 executives, public sector leaders, world-renowned academics, and thought leaders, including General Colin Powell and Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Its goal is to empower frontline county government professionals with practical, results-oriented leadership skills. This robust curriculum differs from pre-recorded webinar-based distance learning in that it is built around interactivity and community and is guided by an expert moderator. It is also designed specifically for the unique challenges and opportunities of serving in county government. In addition to the live webinars and small group cohort sessions, Ms. Wu was required to complete daily assignments every day for 12 weeks. Pam is a graduate of our Leadership Academy and the Dean of Students for our Academy. She was a star student and developed a passion for leadership advancement for herself and others. I'd like the board to commend Ms. Wu for her hard work and congratulate her on this tremendous accomplishment.
Yep, so, sorry, we didn't have a big crowd on here, Ms. Wu.
Yeah.
But yes, congratulations, and we sure appreciate that.
Right.
Yes, sir, and thank you for bringing it to our attention, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, that's
great job.
all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay? Thank you, Mr. Hadid.
Whoops, there we go. I'll back off a little bit. Yes, good evening. I have a number of things to report to you. So I'm going to try to go through them quickly. There's one that I'm going to have to go through with some depth, and I'll just let you know up front what that is. I'm going to leave it for last, and that is actually related to the opioid crisis. As Mr. Cameron told you, there has been, and I know you know this, there's been litigation, class action litigation nationwide. The Attorney General is putting together a settlement for all the state and the local governments, meaning cities and counties, and we'll have to kind of act on that in a more rapid fashion. So I'm going to be giving you a lot of detail that I might have given you in a memorandum. You don't have to vote on anything tonight, but these cases are coming to a rapid conclusion, and in these kinds of settlements, especially complex ones, you have to have rapid action. So when I get to that one, pardon me for the detail. The other things, which I'm now going to do, are going to be sort of quick. If you have a question or comment, don't hesitate to ask me. Okay, so I'm going to pick up from the last board meeting report. You all handled the settlement proposal for Ms. Weeks. Just to let you know, that was a Monday board meeting. I think the hearing was on a Thursday. The deadline for submitting to that court was on the next day, Tuesday. And Ms. Weeks did submit a substantial amount of material to the court, 3 separate pleadings. The hearing was held, and the circuit judge ruled against her and assessed the outstanding judgments. She has since filed very extensive public records requests that now the Flagler County government in its various units are attempting to respond to, despite the entry of the judgments. So I just wanted to let you know that. I can send you some of those things just so you know the degree to which effort is having to be expended, by the way, not just by us locally, but also by the Attorney General's office.
Mr. Hadid, you said to interrupt you, so
Yes.
are those public records requests in line with the same kind of requests that Mr. McDonald was making?
Some of them are, but some of them are exceed what Mr. McDonald has requested. And of course, we're complying, with all those requirements, we're obligated to. With respect to Mr. McDonald's case, as you know, his is coming up with the court at the end of the month, and because of the noncompliance with the financial disclosure requirements, the Attorney General is asking the court to authorize subpoenas to his banks in order to procure all the financial information from his banks. So I wanted to let you know, at least two banks, I don't know if they're every bank, but 2 banks were identified. So anyway, that's on the ethics cases. So they're still going along. And then just briefly, I know it was brought up, but I don't want to leave the record the way it was described on the captain's barbecue case. That case is moving forward. We have had hearings. We have just concluded a couple of rounds of depositions, and I know you wouldn't have a clear recollection of this, but at the last court hearing before the judge wanted some depositions, some discovery to occur in order that the court could return and decide some of the legal issues based on the facts that might be established through the depositions. So that's all moving forward there. The accident that occurred, the individual that fell at the restaurant, the statement was made that you can't that a lessee can't indemnify a landlord. Well, I don't know where that rule might apply elsewhere, but that does. We are allowed to insist on the indemnifications, which we have, and in fact, we've sued on that indemnity, and that is in the court right now, part of the claims that are going back and forth. So I just want to let you know that that case is moving forward. Okay, now, these are, well, here's one historical matter. You remember there was a gentleman in here, actually more than once, I believe, talking about serious disturbance to he and his family because of very loud noise, and wanting us to enact a noise ordinance. He didn't really specify the jurisdictional reach. I just want you to know that we are disinclined to present to you a community-wide noise ordinance because they are very difficult to enforce. They are very taxing on law enforcement, and there are other approaches. So we have gotten with the sheriff's office. I've gotten with the sheriff's office to develop a strategy to deal with the situation that gentleman is facing. So I just wanted you to know that. We pulled out some law that might be of help, and have discussed it with the sheriff's commander. Okay, anything on that? Okay, next, we just received this notification formally by letter, Mr. Cameron, that we have been designated to fall under a requirement of a federal law which is administered by the Environmental Protection Agency that subjects us to more rigorous standards relative to storm sewer systems that we may have in the county that we own or operate. This resulted in the county being designated as part of an urbanized area where we have stormwater conveyances, whether they be for roads or ditches or curbs or gutters or catch basins or storm drains, where there's a concern about the quality of that water entering state waters. It's technically called a Phase 2 municipal separate storm sewer system for regulation under the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Stormwater Program. So I'm sorry for that extensive recitation. We were not apprised that this was under consideration, so we had begun very quickly doing our research. We're going to be asking for an extension of time to address this designation with our DEP. The Florida DEP is the delegated agency to administer that federal program. We're very much concerned about it because we don't know what the implications are, what the costs are, how will it affect our practices. And as I said, we had no, at least myself, Mr. Cameron, I think Mr. Telfer has left. As far as we know, none of us have aware of any proceedings that would so designate us. So we're going to take a look at that. We do have a notice period that we can formally challenge this within 14 days in formal administrative hearings. We do not wish to use that option. We're going to use another option to ask for an extension of time in order that we may evaluate it, because Mr. Cameron has to understand it in order to bring it to you and to have you understand it as our local governing body in order for us to assess what we're going to do with this. So I want to let you know it's fast coming and it's on the horizon.
Right, just two quick thoughts, and I know we haven't looked into this further. This came direct from the federal government?
No. Let me fill in a couple of those blanks. This is part of the Environmental Protection Agency's efforts to have the Florida to be an example of their Clean Water Act. And it breaks down into urban and rural. And somehow or another, upon a complaint by the riverkeeper, we got reclassified to urban. Now, both Mr. Hadid and I believe that that is probably erroneous because the density of the population in the unincorporated portions of this county certainly cannot meet that standard. So we do want to look at that. My concern is that if in fact we end up subject to this, it most certainly will give y'all the alternative or encourage the alternative of having a stormwater taxing district, because it'll, as they continue to increase the requirements, which is inevitable, then you're going to incur more and more expense. And given the financial picture that I think you're going to see when we show you the strategic financial plan, unless you curtail services in other areas, there's going to be no way to accommodate that. So we're going to work hard to first have them to reevaluate that density, and it has to be done on the U.S. Census. And since the census for 2020 has not come out, it has to use the 2010, and I can't imagine that in 2010 that we would have been considered urban in the unincorporated areas.
Just to follow up, because my second part of the question was, and I know you may not know the answer to this right now, but this is just for the unincorporated part of the county, or would the cities get separately
Palm Coast
notified?
has their own. I don't know about Flagler Beach and Bunnell at this point,
But they'd have to get their
but
own.
Palm Coast has their own designation.
Yeah, based on your explanation, it sounds like that would be more suited to an appeal than an extension. So I don't want to get us caught by extending it if that means we're agreeing to the designation instead of appealing the designation.
The enlarge asking for extra time suspends it during the time that it's suspended.
Okay, so
In other words, you
appeal
would
is
be-
still in process, is still an option at
Yeah,
the
you
end
don't
of the
lose.
extension.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, if I made it sound like an either or, no.
Right.
No, we just want to put off, we want to extend the time before we are compelled to file a formal petition.
Gotcha.
And to be heard by the Division of Administrative Hearings.
Thank you.
We want to try to avoid that.
That's a very extensive and drawn-out process. If you go through the DOA process, we had some advice from a regulatory employee that stated that this would probably be the preferable way to go. And the county attorney and I discussed it extensively, and we decided that that was the best way to go.
Anything else, Mr. Adid?
Okay, opioid. Okay, again, pardon. This was my weekend reading. All right.
That's what attorneys do.
And no sympathy here.
I know you have you guys have a lot to read yourselves, and a lot of it, you're wondering why you're getting paid to read it. Okay, all right, the Attorney General has sent this out, I know for a fact, to all counties. I know that through our Association of County Attorneys, and we'll be having a conference call on this coming Friday about what to do with this. But this is essentially a proposal to figure out how to distribute monies that are coming from these nationwide various class actions that were brought against the pharmaceutical companies and not just the manufacturers, but the distributors, the marketers of opioid medication. And so those cases have, are starting to wind down. There are two major companies that are going into bankruptcy, so there's like bankruptcy settlements from their assets. Some of the names, Cardinal Health, you may have heard of that. McKesson Corporation, I know you know that name. Johnson & Johnson, Purdue Pharma. So think of all these different companies. There are different suits involving them. We have over 100 cities and counties that have brought their own suits that are involved in these cases, as well as the state of Florida. So it's a very complex litigation picture, very difficult to describe, except to say a lot of cases involving a lot of governmental entities from Florida. So the companies, as you might imagine, they want to get rid of the claims, so they want to do it on a global basis. So the discussions are, how are we going to have all of these cases that are pending against us, the companies, how are we going to get them dismissed? And these are class actions where we're going to owe to many other governments. So they're looking for that global kind of settlement. And what all the different plaintiffs are part of a multi-district litigation panel that was created by the judges so that they would have this opportunity for global settlement. And there is an executive committee of those plaintiffs. And so the state of Florida Attorney General has been working with that group, and that group has analyzed the different approaches for an appropriate allocation of the dollar amounts that are coming. So they have reached a tentative agreement in the form of a memorandum of understanding. And they are asking, the Attorney General of Florida is asking that when that gets finalized, they've given us a draft, when that gets finalized, that we rapidly put it on our agendas and approve it. Now, let me give you the biggest incentive for it. For these companies, they will pay a higher amount to get rid of all the cases. You can understand that motivation, right? They'll pay a premium, in essence. So the state of Florida would like as many cities and counties to agree, obviously with the state, so as to maximize the amount of dollars that the state can receive from these settlements. The major counties and the major cities that are involved in the litigation, work with the state to develop this memorandum of agreement. Now, generally, just give you just a general idea. Okay, there's going to be a very significant amount of settlement funds. The state of Florida estimates, and again, these are estimates, the settlements have not been finalized, but the range of these monies are, and they're over different time lengths. Some of the settlements are 7-year payouts, some are as long as 18-year payouts. So just to give you a sense of magnitude, in the first few years, 120 to 140 million to the state and for all the cities and counties in the state, okay? In the middle years of the payouts, between 90 and 110 million. And then in the latter years, 60 to 70 million. So we're talking about very substantial monies coming in on a recurring basis, and how are they going to get distributed? So obviously you have to have some definitions of what the money can be used for. So it is available for all the different treatment programs, the counseling, the training associated with remedying opioid abuse, including other conditions that are also associated with those individuals that are afflicted with opioid addiction. So in other words, other substance abuse problems, mental health problems. So they're broadly defining the kind of problems that these funds can address. They've also identified the kinds of programs that these monies can go toward to address these problems for individuals that are unfortunately suffering from these conditions. So, they put a lot of thought in it. They've also developed formulas as to how to evaluate those states that should get a larger share of the money because they've been more adversely affected. For example, commonly referred to as the opioid belt, West Virginia, Kentucky, other states. And obviously population is a factor. They look at the volume of claims that have been filed to governmental agencies to pay for the consequences of opioid addiction. So they've developed formulas. Now, what they're recommending, well, let me back up. The state of Florida, as far as the division of the money nationally, is slated to get about 7% of all of the settlement funds in the nation. And every other state will get its percentages, right? Florida is number 2 among the 50 states. The number 1 state is Texas. So that gives you a sense of where we are in the national rankings. Now, how is this money going to be divvied up from the state down to the local cities and counties? What they've done is they've created 3 groups. One is the state of Florida. One is the major counties, which are those counties with over 300,000 people, and then the other counties that are less than 300,000, cities less than 50,000 in population, et cetera. So think of it like the state, the large counties, the large municipalities, and then all the other political subdivisions. So the way they see those monies coming out is that 15% of whatever the state is getting in the aggregate is going to go to all of the non-large cities and counties that they'll receive. And they've done a sample spreadsheet to show us what it might look like for Flagler County. And I'll get into that very shortly after I cover the other amounts. Just so you know, they're looking at 30 to 40% of the amount of money that the state receives that will go to the larger counties, i.e. those with populations exceeding 300,000. Now, again, as I said, the remainder, the the state's going to pull, I didn't tell you that percentage. I'm trying to remember how much the state was. Oh, and the state's getting between 45 to 55% of that of the aggregate that the state receives. Okay, so with respect to our participation in 15%, okay, now let's just assume, so what order of magnitude are we talking about? Let's assume that the aggregate the state receives in a year is 100 million. That's sort of the midpoint of the numbers I was using. Okay, that means 15 million to cities and counties that are under, the 300,000 population limit. So that's 15 million to divvy up to all those governments. So how are they going to do that? Well, they've used metrics to identify the percentages for each of the counties that fall into that. And we are in our grouping, we have, let me see, so I'm accurate, hold on one second, because the money is very significant, obviously, as far as our own interests. And then I'll explain to you how that money is traveling. How much is it now and how it's getting to us? Okay, of all the counties, we have 0.4% of the amount that is allocated among the counties, okay, just so you know. So it's relatively small. And they have assigned those percentages all the way through. So depending upon what kind of the money flows are, we can expect between $40,000 and $76,000 out of that total that I just described, just so you know. Now, how is that money going to actually get to us? What the state is proposing, again, this is a proposal. It is that it will go to the primary provider that the state contracts with in our county for substance abuse services. That's what they figured would be the most effective way. Actually, this is very consistent with what Mr. Cameron was telling you in his, I don't even know that he's aware of that provision in here. I know he's not. His provision of saying, if you're going to have resources, give it to the major providers because they can deliver more for that amount of money, that incremental increase. So our provider is SMA. So they would be getting the monies from these settlements, however it's allocated. Now, obviously, the more we can get, the better. I mean, we have severe needs. We don't have a lot of dollars that we're able to invest in those kinds of services, and so this is very important. Obviously, I'm going to be participating in the conference call, and I'm going to be doing everything I can to make sure that we're treated fairly in this process. It's going to come fast. I mean, I don't know exactly what timeline, but when these mega suits come to a conclusion, they want to come to a conclusion pretty quickly when people have figured out how much money it's going to take to, yield a settlement. So I wanted to give you that sort of orientation so that you can be thinking about it. This is going to all your other local governments. I'm going to guess that Palm Coast got a similar package on the city side. And the Attorney General is attempting to get as many cities and counties to sign off on this memorandum of agreement. So that's a broad brush.
Could I just say something at this point? For the amount of money we're talking about here, my guess is the reporting requirements for that will be pages and pages and pages of documentation. And by the time the person puts in the hours to provide all that information, probably half of the funding will already be used up. Just paying for that time. Sorry, but.
Anything else?
Duly noted.
Anything else, Mr. Hadid?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our second community outreach portion of our agenda. Anyone from the public wish to come forward? All right, seeing no one come forward, we'll close community outreach, move on to commission reports, comments, or action items, and Commissioner Dance.
No reports or other action items. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Paul Harrington he would have been sitting right out there in the audience. And we chatted after the last commission meeting too. He was the gentleman who ran for, but just, he became a fixture here, so at the meetings, and had a lot of good conversations with him about various
Know that.
county activities, but it's another loss to the community. And I know he seemed to be recovering from his surgeries, but they're too much.
That it, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for telling us that.
Just a shout out to the tax assessor. That was a great event, opening the tax office in St. Joe's Plaza. It's a great event for the people, the various stores in St. Joe's Plaza. It's going to really bring business, I think, into that community. So anyway, it was well done by Ms. Johnston.
I'm going to regret this. Commissioner Mullins?
I'd only have two quick things. One of them is just, I want to put into public record a lot of the people that have reached out and just said how positive they were about us doing this constitutional, making the move with the constitutional. One of them, thank you, we are relocating later this year from Massachusetts once our new home is completed. Certainly glad that Flagler County has a no-nonsense, law-abiding commissioners, makes our move all the more eagerly anticipated. Another one is I bought a duplex on Flagler Beach years ago. I knew I liked that town. And it's just pages of positivity about doing that and backing it up. So I'll put that into the record. And really the only thing that I've heard was the blogger that turned around and said the Bible was nothing but a book of unproven mythical stories. And but other than that, we were wasting our time focusing on the Constitution. But other than that, it's been a real positive move. So I want to thank everybody and thank you, Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on that, when the Coachillas left, I don't know if you heard, Ms. Coachilla uttered a profanity towards us. And, the Constitution allows her to do that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
The other thing is, hearing what you said, Mr. Hadid, and hearing what the citizen Jane Yald said, sounds like with the lawsuit with Dennis McDonald and Kim Weeks, sounds like she's all for us going after them too. She wants to see that money, those lawsuits paid for and done, like she mentioned with the other one, and people held accountable. So I kind of take that she's pushing that as well. So that's all I got.
Yes, just one item. As you know, with the COVID-19 right now and the vaccines, we're moving quickly along with a lot of progress. And as we go, it's probably a good point in time that maybe it's time for us as a Board of County Commission to have our staff look at some kind of remembrance. We're now up to 106 individuals in Flagler County that have died from COVID-19. So it may be the appropriate time now, as we move forward positively with COVID-19, to have maybe some kind of public sunset service to commemorate the death of those 106 human beings here in the county. So I just wanted to mention that to our fellow commissioners to see if you'd be willing to endorse that our staff look at putting together some kind of remembrance for those individuals.
That's a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. I had three things. One, I wanted to apologize to Alicia. I think I called you Renee. I don't know why I did that. I apologize about that. And thank you for your help before. Mr. Cameron, on the Water Oak Lane, we were going to look at the speed limit there or start to get some options together, and I'm wondering if we have any progress there.
Yes, Faith Alcative is looking at that, and she's going to get a report back to me. Her initial take on that was that she would prefer that the improvements be done and then adjust the speed. But she's going to give me something definitive on that.
We're supposed to do the improvements this year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Summer.
Okay.
Which,
All right.
which is, I'm sorry, which is this? Which
Water Oak Road, we had.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. The last thing that I have, Commissioners, is, and I think you all, yes, you all received a copy of this. This was a letter that Sheriff Staley sent to us regarding sexual offenders and sexual predators. And he pointed out that in his mind that there were two deficiencies in our ordinances governing convicted sex offenders and predators that live in Flagler County. And I'm just going to read this real quick here and ask a couple of questions. Our ordinance, Flagler County Ordinance 20-377 prohibits sex offenders and predators as defined in Flagler County Ordinance 20-376 from establishing a permanent residence within 1,000 feet of certain places where children are commonly found, to include schools, daycares, public parks, and playgrounds. Unfortunately, the current ordinances neglects to include several important locations, so he's pointing out a hole there: private recreational open spaces and facilities, libraries, churches, and designated bus stops. He also goes on to say a distance of 1,000 feet in his mind is insufficient. State statute establishes 1,000 feet as the minimum distance between permanent residents of a sex offender or predator and a designated location. And he points out that the city of Palm Coast has increased this distance to 2,500 feet in their ordinance, and he's encouraging us to do more and keep our children safe and look at this. And so I'm looking for comments or feedback from administration, the attorney, and
Well, certainly, our sheriff has been very firm with regard to sex offenders. He notifies the community immediately when they move to our community, and when he finds them violating the provisions of the state law, he has acted quickly. I would recommend supporting the sheriff in this. However, this would have to be vetted by the county attorney, see if there's any case law that's out there that assigns any unreasonableness to certain distances or certain locations. And if he finds that that's a clean slate, I would recommend accepting the sheriff's recommendation and making the revision.
Mr. Adid?
We've already started working on it today.
Okay. So I guess we're hopefully in agreement that we'll hear from you in the future on this. Okay? That's all I have to
Yes, sir.
ask. Yep, all right.
Mr. Chairman, it'd be good to have a consensus so that the county attorney doesn't do a bunch of work for no purpose.
I think we should support the sheriff on this. And, yeah.
As well.
I would at least like to see some research on it or a draft or something, so. I agree, Commissioner, and plus, I mean, if you think about it, the majority of the population is in the city of Palm Coast, and so, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for helping us with that. All right, I don't have anything else, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.